Last week we were all stunned into silence when the Danish footballer Christian Eriksen suddenly collapsed on the field while his team were in the middle of a match at the European Championships. Thankfully he received immediate help, which involved CPR and a shock from a defibrillator, which managed to bring him back to consciousness. He has since reported that he is feeling well and is now safely out of hospital. But how on earth could something like this happen to an athlete? And what could you do to help if you saw someone collapse? The first question that is on everyone's mind is, what actually happened? What we do know is that he suffered a cardiac arrest, which is when the heart stops beating normally. He therefore required life support, which included CPR and a shock from a defibrillator for a dangerous and life-threatening heart rhythm. This shock brought his heart back to a normal rhythm, which brought him back to consciousness. There's a saying in medicine that time is muscle, and the fact that he was able to receive immediate CPR and defibrillation made all the difference. Here's a question for you to think about. What do you think the chances are of survival for someone who has had a cardiac arrest outside of hospital? You might be surprised to hear that this is in fact only around 10%. So Eriksen was, in a sense, fortunate to have immediate medical assistance, which significantly increased his chances of survival and made the crucial difference. What we do not know yet is why he suffered this cardiac arrest, what the provoking factor was. At this point, I think it's important to point out that a cardiac arrest is not the same thing as a heart attack. I often find that people use the two terms interchangeably, but they aren't the same thing. A heart attack is when the blood supply to the heart muscle becomes compromised due to a form of blockage within the coronary arteries. And globally, the leading cause of cardiac arrest is because of a blockage to the arteries. But in athletes, the reasons for a cardiac arrest tend to be from different causes. A cardiac arrest is when the heart stops beating normally, and this is the end result of a disease. It's what occurs in death, unless it can be reversed, which is not always the case, as I said before. While a heart attack can lead to the heart stopping, it doesn't necessarily always cause this. In Eriksen's case, we do not yet know what caused his cardiac arrest. We also know that he has been fitted with an ICD, which is a small device which will continually monitor his heart for any further dangerous heart rhythms, which prevent the heart from pumping blood as normal and promptly deliver a shock to try to restore a normal rhythm. Once someone has had an episode such as this, it is quite possible that they can have another. Some players, such as the Dutch footballer Daley Blind, actually continue to play football even with this device, but Eriksen himself hasn't confirmed whether he'll continue to play or be forced to retire early. Another reasonable question is to ask how this could have been missed when he has at least annual medical tests involving cardiac screening. The simple answer is that cardiac screening does not and cannot test for every single possible abnormality of the heart. Different sporting disciplines use different methods of screening, but in European football, this includes taking a history, performing an ECG, which is an electrical tracing of the heart, and doing an echocardiogram. This is a very easy test to organise that can pick up many issues with the heart, but it doesn't identify everything. The ECG can be useful to detect some conditions which affect the actual structure of the heart, and highlight some issues with the electrics of the heart as well, but it makes limited assessment of the plumbing of the heart, the arteries. An echocardiogram is an ultrasound or a sonogram, which allows you to visualize the structure of the heart and the way it pumps blood. This can identify other cardiac issues, but again, it doesn't pick up every single possible cardiac abnormality. So there is a chance that he had some underlying abnormality that was not identified. Screening is sometimes controversial because it's not a perfect test, and of course provides a snapshot of an individual at a particular time, whereas they could go on to develop a condition that might affect the heart at a later date. The other possibility is that either he did not have an underlying abnormality, but for some reason his heart went into an abnormal rhythm, which can happen sometimes due to big shifts in salt levels, or perhaps he developed some form of cardiac inflammation or scarring at some point since his last medical. This is an interesting question. Most people would think that athletes would have the most healthy hearts. The heart is a muscle, so in a sense, the more that the muscle works, the better or more adapted it becomes to this level of exertion. But that doesn't tell the whole story. The heart is a complicated organ with many possible abnormalities. There can be problems with the muscle of the heart, the electrical pathways, the blood vessels, or many other parts. So although an athlete's heart may be physically fit, they can still have problems with their heart, just like anyone else. Here's a tricky thing. Conditions associated with sudden cardiac death affect around 1 in 50,000 sports players per year, which isn't that rare. When we look retrospectively at these players, we see that there are a number of different causes for this. As you can see on this graphic, these can include coronary artery disease, which is when the blood vessels supplying the heart become blocked. This is generally in athletes over the age of 35. Myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle. Fibrosis, which is scarring of the heart muscle. Cardiomyopathy, which is a group of diseases affecting the heart muscle. Sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, which is most commonly due to an unidentified electrical problem, which can be difficult to pick up, and some of these other causes. While the screening tests pick up many of these causes, they unfortunately can't pick them all up. We simply don't have the perfect test to identify any and all cardiac conditions, or indeed conditions affecting other organs. So while we can prevent certain conditions, we can't stop them all. Given that we can't always predict or prevent every single cause of sudden cardiac death, what other ways can we manage this? Well, if you're aged between 14 and 35 and live in the UK, the charity Cardiac Risk in the Young offers subsidised screening, so you can sign up to this right now. Just click on the link in the description below. Their screening involves an ECG and in some cases may also include an echocardiogram if there are abnormalities on the ECG. Another thing that you can do is to learn about basic life support. This teaches you what to do if you come across someone who has collapsed and how to administer CPR. I personally think that this should be taught to everyone from a young age, perhaps even part of the school curriculum. But if you want to know how to do this, you can sign up to a course, which is linked in the description below. You can also click on this link to see a video on how to perform CPR and use an automated defibrillator. I hope you found this video useful. Hopefully there are a couple of things that you can take away from this and learn from. Comment below if you'd like me to cover any other health conditions in future. And I'll see you next time. Bye!